So I worry that when your speech is stifled, it can affect other things in life. And I just wanted the council to remember that. And you're the people who write these laws. You have to make sure that they're constitutional, and not make it into kinds of court cases that cost the city money. I mean, just for going to the code enforcement thing along, for the two attorneys was over $2,000, just for that one case.
We had a meeting last week, and the sheriff came in, and the sheriff even said that the law is unconstitutional. You're looking at taking away our First Amendment rights. You are all being recalled. You don't know it. We've been having meetings in our homes. We are recalling all 5 of you, even the ones that aren't up for a re-election. You will be recalled. You will be shamed in this town.
The Code Board specifically last month had one of those discussions where some of the more contentious citations were discussed, specifically on the sign ordinance, and the meeting was long, obviously, and part of the meeting degenerated, I would say, into something that didn't specifically comply with the rules of conduct that you have on the wall when it came to personal opinion of respondents, etc. And then there was also some conduct that when you look at the ordinance where it specifies in the ordinance for quasi-judicial boards that there needs to be impartiality, and the opinions formed for the outcome of the meeting need to be impartial when you come in and formed based on the information that was presented during the meetings themselves, not a preconceived idea that.
But the thing that to me was the most bothersome is that it wasn't the litigants that were on trial as much as our ordinance. That's the way it came across to me and to several others. The boards and the commissions are not there to make up the rules or decide if they like what the city council has deemed to be the law. They were discussing the law, not whether the law was broken, but they were discussing the law. And the gentleman that came in with the pile of papers that he had already prepared, I was appalled. I was just appalled. And I was also very surprised that I got 3 letters about it from people who had watched the meeting and couldn't believe that this was Punta Gorda city government. That's not how this city works. We are a community of laws. And once the laws have been made, it is up to everybody in our staff, our government, our police department to support those laws.
These people on this particular board need to understand that they represent the city when they are sitting at this dais. They represent the rules that the city has in place. They are there to enforce them. When people sit at this dais, they need to remember they represent the city.
They represent the city. They represent the city.
This is not okay. We can't do this. We can't perform like this. And we can't have people sitting at the dais representing the city who are going to act that way. Because it also puts the city in a very bad liability position. If anybody does challenge the result of any of those hearings that took place that day, they can go back and play that video all day long. Somebody being called a name, or somebody who has spoken to the media out loud and been quoted in a national newspaper. That all goes against the city as far as if it goes to a court of law, because the appeals process for The Code Enforcement Board is an appeals court, and if they take it to court, the city could be in a major problem situation.
Making a quasi-judicial decision, city council, its boards, committees, or commissions act like the judge of a trial where fairness, impartiality, and due process are afforded all parties.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, watching the whole thing, that one of the members was actually more or less putting our code on trial.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I
It's
object
like-
to.
I'm extremely reluctant to make any comments as the city prosecutor. Code Enforcement Board, which is sort of a higher level of quasi-judicial, because they are in essence sitting as what used to be called municipal court, which was typically populated by actual judges. I think one of the nice things about our Code Enforcement Board is they are members of the community. They are sympathetic to the neighbors. And I think our Code Enforcement Board also represents the opinions of many, numerous members, as opposed to one special magistrate. When you act like a judge at a trial, it's important not only to be impartial, but to give the appearance of being impartial. We have had the assistance of an attorney who was representing the board itself, and was advising the board that, for example, the constitutionality of the ordinance was not at issue before the Code Enforcement Board. There was some allegations made by the attorney representing the respondents that one or more of the Code Enforcement Board members demonstrated animus against the attorney or animus against the clients. In a judicial court of law, an attorney who makes that allegation has the ability to ask that the judge recuse themselves from further deliberation or consideration of the case because of the mere appearance of some sort of bias or animosity results in a potential denial of due process. And when an attorney makes that allegation and asks the judge to recuse themselves, the judge does not have the right to argue and say, "Oh, I can be fair." The rules of procedure require the judge to recuse themselves. We have another Code Enforcement Board hearing coming up with similar violations with respect to the same respondents. I'm concerned about going into that next hearing with already evidence of the lack of appropriate judicial demeanor, but I do have a legitimate concern of being able to defend the city should the next Code Enforcement Board hearing find the same violators to be in violation of the code. It's a ready-made argument for the respondents to argue that they were denied due process because the one or more board members came in there based on what was their behavior at the previous code enforcement board.
They just showed that they can't uphold our law. And, you know, if it's that big of a problem to them, they should resign. And if they don't resign, we should ask them to go.
I think for me, it's this liability it puts on the city by the rules not being followed and professional decorum not being followed. And I don't think we can allow it to continue. I think we have to do something that.
Pretty drastic.
Yeah.
We had a meeting last week, and the sheriff came in, and the sheriff even said that the law is unconstitutional. You're looking at taking away our First Amendment rights. You are all being recalled. You don't know it. We've been having meetings in our homes. We are recalling all 5 of you, even the ones that aren't up for a re-election. You will be recalled. You will be shamed in this town.
I'm just more troubled by the fact that they didn't support our law. You know, I think. to me-
Again,
to
they
me that-
represent the city when
that's
they sit at
exactly
this
right.
dais. They represent the city.
They represent the city. They represent the city.
Okay, well, we need somebody to make a motion to some extent. Don't everybody talk at once.
I move that we remove the 2 worst offenders who, I don't know how to say it,
Well, the city clerk, I think, should,
give us their names.
yeah, I mean, to clarify, you're concerned about the 2 that voted against the finding of the violation. So,
But that's not my reasoning.
no, but for identification
Yeah,
purposes.
okay.
If the clerk can identify who those 2 people were, then
Yeah.
Oh, that would be Mr. Jay Nadelson and Mr. Edward Weiner.
because clearly, as the clerk indicated, you have the ability to remove without cause. Sign code violations, did file notices of appeal, and they were filed by an organization called the Rutherford Institute. And I Googled them and would encourage you maybe to do the same, but in their it's an organization that, among other things, champions First Amendment free speech rights. And they have on their front page a story about the city's code enforcement board case and our ordinance. And take this as you will, but when they mentioned the F word that featured prominently in the case, they chose not to spell it out. So I think that's a little telling about how they perceive well, I'll just leave it at that.
What was the name of that organization?
Rutherford, like Rutherford B. Hayes Institute.